My grandparents, a tragic car crash left me with their $26 million estate. My family demanded I surrender it. I said no. They kicked me out. I settled into my grandparents' house. The following morning, they tried to force me out, but stopped cold when they saw who was standing with me. Growing up in the suburbs of a mid-sized American city, I never felt like I quite fit with my family. My parents, Richard and Diane, were always chasing something. Dad with his 60-hour work weeks climbing the corporate ladder, Mom with her endless networking at country clubs and charity galas. Family dinners? Rare. And when they happened, they were interrupted by Dad's phone buzzing or Mom planning her next social event. They gave me the basics: food, clothes, a roof, but love, guidance, that was in short supply. Instead, I found home with my grandparents, Elizabeth and Harold. From the time I was 5, I spent weekends and summers at their modest 4-bedroom house, just 20 minutes from my parents' polished McMansion. Their place was my sanctuary: 3 acres of green, a vegetable garden where Grandpa taught me to plant tomatoes, and a kitchen where Grandma showed me how to bake her famous chocolate chip cookies. They were wealthy, sure, but you'd never know it. Grandpa drove a beat-up pickup truck for 20 years. Grandma clipped coupons like it was her job. They built their fortune from nothing. A logistics company started in their garage in the 70s with one truck and a dream. By the time I was born, Alexander Logistics was a regional powerhouse, but they stayed humble. Money's a tool, Natalie, they did so. It'll lead, they'd say, not your worth. Use it to build something real, not to impress people who don't matter. That mindset drove a wedge between them and my dad, their only son. He grew up expecting to inherit their wealth and live large. He called them stingy, old-fashioned, resenting their frugality. They paid for his college, helped with a starter home, but when he demanded a cushy job at their company with no experience, they said no. He needed to earn it. That fight broke their relationship, and he barely spoke to them after that. They treated me differently. They paid for my college so I graduated debt-free, but they never pushed me toward a high-flying career. When I chose teaching kindergarten, barely above minimum wage, they were over the moon. They saw my passion, not my paycheck. We had Sunday dinners every week, me helping them set up their smartphones, them sharing family recipes and stories from their youth. My parents hated that I spent holidays with them instead of at their house, but Grandma and Grandpa's was where I felt loved. 6 weeks ago, everything changed. I was grading papers in my cozy 1-bedroom apartment. Think thrift store furniture and too many plants. When my phone rang, it was the police. My grandparents had been hit by a drunk driver coming home from their favorite diner. They were gone, just like that. The officer said they didn't suffer, but that didn't ease the ache. The funeral was a blur. My parents took over, arguing about Kez. My brother Jason flew in from California, glued to his phone. My Aunt Pam sobbed for the cameras, then stopped when they were off. Uncle Steve just hovered awkwardly. None of them had visited in years, yet there they were, playing the grieving family. I felt numb. The 2 people who truly saw me were gone, and their warm house now stood empty. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Matthew Goldstein, my grandparents' lawyer and friend. He asked me and my family to come for the will reading. I had no idea what was coming. That morning was gray and drizzly, matching my mood. I drove to Matthew's office in my 10-year-old sedan, clutching the umbrella Grandma always insisted I keep in my car. His office in a charming Victorian house downtown felt warm despite my nerves. Matthew greeted me with kind eyes and a handshake, saying how much he'd missed Grandpa's chess games and Grandma's lemon bars. His sincerity made me tear up. Then my family barged in, Dad checking his fancy watch, impatient as ever. Mom with her designer handbag worth more than my rent. Jason, 25, swaggering in sunglasses indoors, his idea of business attire, a wrinkled shirt. Aunt Pam loud on her phone about some country club drama, and Uncle Steve trailing her like a shadow. Let's get this over with, Dad snapped. Some of us have businesses to run. Matthew led us to a conference room, the air thick with tension. He explained that my grandparents were of sound mind when they updated their will last year, then began reading. I wasn't prepared for what came next. We bequeath our entire estate, $8 million in cash, $12 million in investments, $5 million in real estate, in a 25% stake in Alexander Logistics, to our granddaughter, Natalie Grace Foster. The room went silent. I couldn't breathe. $26 million to me, a kindergarten teacher. Dad exploded, snatching the will from Matthew, shouting it was ridiculous. Mom chimed in, a kindergarten teacher? She can't handle that money. Jason slammed the table, demanding startup cash for his latest scheme. Aunt Pam accused me of manipulating them. I sat there stunned as Matthew played a video my grandparents had recorded. There they were, on their living room sofa, alive again on the screen. My heart broke. Grandpa spoke first. If you're watching this, we're gone. We want to explain our decision. Grandma added, Richard, Pam, we love you, but your values disappoint us. You've treated us as a resource, not parents. They detailed years of my family's greed, missed events, unpaid loans, dismissive attitudes, while praising my loyalty, my choice to teach, my visits just to spend time with them. Natalie's the only one who shares our values, Grandpa said. We trust her to honor our legacy. Dad threatened to contest the will, calling them senile. Matthew shut him down, citing cognitive tests and years of documented behavior. Mom turned to me, her voice suddenly sweet. Natalie, darling, this money's for the family. You'll share, won't you? I stammered, overwhelmed. I need to think. Jason scoffed. Think? That money should be split, or Dad should manage it. The meeting ended in chaos, with threats of lawsuits. Matthew handed me an envelope with keys and documents, telling me to take my time. That night, Dad demanded I come to their house to sort this out. Their 5,000-square-foot mansion felt cold, all granite and glass. They were waiting in the formal living room, Dad with his scotch, Mom on a stiff designer chair. Jason sprawled on the sofa, Aunt Pam pacing, Uncle Steve staring out the window. Dad launched into his pitch. I'd sign over the estate to him, and they'd generously give me 10%. Jason demanded $5 million for his crypto venture. Aunt Pam wanted the house for her kids' better schools. When demands didn't work, they tried guilt. Mom's eyes welled up. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Dad threatened to drag my name through the mud, questioning my visits to my grandparents. I felt cornered, but in memory of Grandpa teaching me to stand up to a playground bully at 8 years old steadied me. No one takes your dignity unless you let them, Natalie. Hold firm. When Dad slid a transfer document across the table, I refused to sign. The room erupted. Mom called me ungrateful. Jason hurled insults. Dad gave an ultimatum: sign or be disowned. Then he dropped a bomb. They owned my apartment building through a shell company and were terminating my lease. I had 30 minutes to pack. I moved in a daze, grabbing clothes, documents, and Grandma's quilt. Dad watched like a prison guard, Mom already on the phone with a realtor about selling the house. You were never really family, Dad said coldly. You were an obligation. Mom added, we wasted money on your private school, braces, dance lessons you were terrible at. Jason smirked. That $26 million won't keep you warm tonight. I walked out, bags slung over my shoulders, and sat in my car, sobbing. I'd gained millions, but lost my family. With nowhere else to go, I remembered the envelope. Inside were keys to my grandparents' house, now mine. Driving there felt surreal. The porch light had glowed, probably on a timer Grandpa set. The house smelled of lemon verbena and wood polish, but the silence was crushing. I collapsed in the guest room, crying until I fell asleep. The next morning, reality hit. My phone buzzed with threats from Dad and Jason. Enjoy the house while it lasts. Matthew arrived with coffee and news. My family was already contacting lawyers, but my grandparents had planned for this. He showed me a deed to a cottage they'd bought for me, unknown to Dad. Then Carlos, their estate manager, knocked. He'd been looking after the property and had security footage of my family taking items after the funeral. Dorothy, their housekeeper, brought journals documenting years of my family's greed versus my genuine visits. Friends and associates arrived. Rosa, their business partner. George, their financial advisor. Sarah, their neighbor, each offering support and stories of my grandparents' kindness. When my family showed up the next day, expecting to bully me, they faced a united front. Judge Henderson, a friend of my grandparents, was there, along with Police Chief Maria Williams and longtime employees. Matthew presented evidence of my family's past manipulations, forged checks, unauthorized transfers, cruel comments. I handed them cease and desist orders and terms for any future relationship. Respect my grandparents' wishes, or we're done. Defeated, they left, their threats empty. 6 months later, I'm still teaching, running the Elizabeth and Harold Alexander Foundation, which supports education for underprivileged kids. I've funded scholarships, school supplies, and community programs, keeping my grandparents' values alive. Their house is my home now, a place for new traditions with the chosen family they left me: Carlos, Dorothy, Rosa, and others who loved them for who they were. My biological family, they reach out when they need money, but I hold firm. Visiting their graves recently, I thank them for trusting me. The money was never the point. It was about purpose, community, and impact. At a scholarship ceremony, watching kids like Maria, who'll be the first in her family to go to college, I felt them with me. That's their legacy, and I'm honored to carry it forward. What's your story? Have you ever had to stand up to family for what's right? Drop it in the comments. If this hit home, like, subscribe, and share. Family's about love and respect, not money. Thanks for listening. I'm Natalie, and this is just the beginning.